Here's your job. Take 2.3 million blocks of stone, some of them heavier than a loaded truck. Stack them into a perfect pyramid taller than a 40-story building. Your tools: copper, rope, and a river. No iron. No wheels worth a damn. No engines. Oh, and you've got about 20 years. Good luck. 4,500 years later, we still can't quite believe they pulled it off. So we made up answers. Aliens? Lost ancient technology? 50,000 whipped slaves dragging stone across the desert? And honestly, every single one of them is wrong. The real method is so simple, it's almost insulting. There's one trick, proven in a physics lab, that cut the hardest part of the job in half. And we have the receipts. The Egyptians painted themselves doing it. So, you actually want to know how they really did it? Because by the end of this, you'll know the actual method. No whips, no aliens, no magic. First, let's deal with the whips. The whole slaves built the pyramids idea? It's a myth, and it's not even an old Egyptian idea. It came from a Greek tourist. A historian named Herodotus turned up about 2,000 years after the pyramid was finished. 2,000 years. That's like us writing the definitive history of the Roman Empire based on a vibe. He wrote down a number too, 100,000 workers. Then Hollywood took the whips and ran with them, and it just stuck. But here's what's actually buried in the sand at Giza, and it ruins the whole movie. Right next to the pyramid, archaeologists dug up a town. Not a prison, a town. The lost city of the pyramid builders, with barracks. And here's the part that kills the slave story. They found bakeries, industrial ones, and breweries. These people were drinking beer on the job, a lot of it, and they were eating beef, prime beef, the good cuts. You do not feed slaves prime steak and beer. That is not how slavery works. And then they found the cemetery. The workers got buried right there, in proper tombs, in the shadow of the king's pyramid. You don't bury slaves with honors next to your god king. You bury people you respected. So who were they? That town has an answer, and it's stranger than slaves. These were free Egyptians, skilled crews, plus rotating teams of regular people. Think of it like a national service project the whole country took turns on. Now, I want to be honest with you, because the internet loves to oversell this. They were not getting a paycheck. Ancient Egypt didn't even have coins yet. So forget the word salary. Picture rations instead. They got housed, they got fed, well, and they got provisioned by the state on the record. And we know it's on the record because we found the record, a logbook from one of the actual crews. We'll get to it. Hold that thought, because once you swap the whips for bread and beer, the whole image flips. This wasn't misery, it was logistics. Picture feeding tens of thousands of workers every day for 20 years in a desert. That bakery wasn't a kitchen. It was a war machine made of bread. Even the tombs back this up. They're built to a hierarchy. The laborers got modest graves. The overseers got bigger ones. A whole little society, ranked and recorded. Average head count, around 13,000 people. At the busy peak, closer to 40,000. Not the 100,000 the Greek tourist guessed. And nobody was in chains, which leaves a much better question. If humans really did this, how? Because moving a 2.5-ton block across sand should be almost impossible. And this is exactly where people give up and start believing in aliens. So let's deal with them properly. There is exactly zero credible evidence that aliens built anything on this planet. And it's worth asking why people are so weirdly comfortable handing the credit to space. Because the quiet version of aliens did it is those people couldn't have. And that's not just wrong, it's insulting. Because the Egyptians left a paper trail. Now, remember that logbook I told you to hold on to? In a cave on the Red Sea coast, a French team dug up the oldest inscribed papyri ever found. They're about 4,500 years old. Khufu's 26th year on the throne. And it's a diary, a work diary, written by a guy. His name was Merer. He was an inspector, running a crew of about 200 men. And his job was hauling white limestone by boat to a place called Akhet Khufu. Akhet Khufu means the horizon of Khufu. That's the Great Pyramid. So let me get this straight. We have the foreman's name. We have the boats. We have the stone. We have the destination in his own handwriting. That's not a mystery. That's a delivery receipt from 45 centuries ago. No spaceship leaves a logbook. No laser cutter complains about the rations. The alien story needs the Egyptians to be silent. And they were not silent. Okay, whips, gone. Aliens, gone. Now the part you actually came for. Here's what I want to plant in your head before we go further. There were 3 tricks that made this whole thing possible. I'll give you 2 of them straight up. The third one is the part nobody guesses, so I'm saving it. Trick 1, the boring one. Wet sand. Here's the problem. You're dragging a giant stone on a wooden sledge. On dry sand, the sledge shoves a heap of sand up in front of it, like a tiny bulldozer. That heap fights you the whole way. It's exhausting. It's the reason this looks impossible. So what do? You pour water on the sand in front of the sledge, and that sounds like it would make a muddy mess. It does the opposite. Just the right amount of water makes the grains of sand grab onto each other. Physicists call them capillary bridges. The sand goes about twice as stiff, and there's a sweet spot. Too little water does nothing, too much turns it back to mush. Get it just right, and a stiff, firm track means no heat piles up, and no heat means the dragging gets easy. How much easier? This is the number I want you to remember. The pulling force drops by about half. Half. Wetting the sand roughly halves the work. That's it. That's the trick. And the best part? We didn't have to guess this. In 2014, physicists in Amsterdam tested it in an actual lab and measured it. And the wildest part is the Egyptians left us a picture of this. Themselves. There's a famous tomb painting of a giant statue being dragged on a sledge. And right at the front, a guy is standing there pouring water onto the sand. On purpose. Now, full honesty, because I promised you the truth, not the easy version. That painting is from about 600 years after the Great Pyramid. And it's a statue, not a pyramid block. So it doesn't show the pyramid being built. But it proves they knew the principle and used it. They literally painted themselves doing the science we only confirmed in 2014. But wet sand only gets the block to the bottom of the pyramid. Then you have to lift 2.5 tons 146 meters into the air, with no cranes, no engines, no hydraulics. Trick 2. Ramps. Wait, before I go on, quick thing, because this part actually got me. If you're enjoying this, do me a favor. Hit subscribe, give it a like, and stick around. Not subscribed yet? Come on, it's free, and we make these every week. Because the third trick, the one I'm still hiding, is the part that genuinely changes how you see this whole thing. So stay with me. Okay? Ramps. The obvious idea, right? Build a slope and drag the blocks up it. And the obvious idea has an obvious problem. To keep a gentle slope to the top, a straight ramp has to be about a mile long. A mile of ramp needs almost as much material as the pyramid itself. So that can't be the whole answer. For years, this was the big argument. Straight ramp, zigzag up one side, a spiral wrapped around the outside. Then in 2018, a team digging at an old quarry found something that changed the conversation. It's called the Hatnub Quarry, and the ramp they found dates to Khufu's own reign. And it wasn't just a slope. It was a slope with 2 staircases beside it, lined with holes for wooden posts. The crew anchored ropes to those posts, and the posts plus the ropes worked like a pulley, a force multiplier. It let them haul blocks up slopes steeper than 20%, way steeper than anyone thought possible. A steep ramp is a short ramp. Suddenly the mile-long monster isn't the only option. Now I have to be straight with you again. We found their technique. We have not found their exact ramp. The Hatnub ramp is at a quarry. It's a steep slope tech from Khufu's time, proven. But the exact shape of the ramp on the Great Pyramid itself, still argued about today. One French architect even thinks there was a secret ramp built inside the pyramid, spiraling up through the stone. It's a gorgeous idea. Most experts think it's far-fetched and horribly complicated. So, jury's out. And honestly, that's the honest answer on the ramp. We know they use ramps in rope haulage. The exact layout is still a live argument. But here's what I didn't tell you yet. Because wet sand and clever ramps explain the physics, they don't explain the real miracle. Trick 3. The part nobody guesses. It isn't a machine at all. It's organization. Thousands of people, fed, housed, scheduled, and willing, all pulling in the same direction for 20 years. That's the thing the aliens crowd can't accept. The hard part wasn't the stone, it was the spreadsheet. Moving one heavy block is a physics problem. Moving 2.3 million of them on schedule is a people problem. And solving a people problem at that scale, 4,500 years ago, is honestly more impressive than a magic laser. So let's go back to the very first thing I showed you. Remember those 50,000 whipped slaves I opened with? Dragging stone under the lash? Here's what I didn't tell you about that picture. It never happened. Swap the whip for a ration of bread. Swap the chains for a name on a logbook. Swap the suffering for a guy named Merer, checking off boats of limestone in his work diary. Same scene. Completely different truth. And we have his actual handwriting to prove it. So here's the real answer. The whole thing. In one breath. Not slaves. Free, fed, organized crews. Not aliens. Inspectors with logbooks. Wet sand to have the drag. Posts and ropes to climb the slope. And a country organized enough to keep it all moving. No whips, no aliens. Just people doing something genuinely incredible and writing it down. And maybe that's why we keep reaching for spaceships and lost magic. Deep down, aliens did it is weirdly comforting. It means we couldn't do it. It lets us off the hook. The scarier, better truth is that ordinary humans, with rope, water, bread, and a plan, did the impossible. On purpose. They didn't need a miracle. They were the miracle. And they left a receipt. We've come a long way from flying saucers, so thanks for sticking with me this far. If you like this, drop a like and subscribe. There's a new piece of history pulled out of the archive every week, filed under things we blamed on aliens that were just people being amazing. That's the archive for today.